Does Jesus founded the Catholic Church? One of the most common claims made by Catholics is that Jesus Christ himself founded the Catholic Church. Is this claim true or false? Let's dig into the Bible to find out. In Matthew 16:18, we read these words attributed to Jesus, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Many Catholics point to this verse in the Bible as proof that Jesus founded the Catholic Church. But wait, let's slow down for a second. As we read through the Bible, we see that the word church in the New Testament was actually a translation of the Greek word ecclesia, which simply meant a called-out assembly or a gathering of people. In fact, the word church in the Bible could refer to all of the people of God in a given area, regardless of whether or not they were Christians, Jews, or Gentiles, as can be seen in Acts 7:38, Acts 19:32, and Romans 16:5. Moreover, the word church could also refer to the building where people gathered together to worship. For example, in Acts 7:45, 5:12, and 1 Corinthians 16:19, the word church was used as a reference to a building. So when Jesus said, "I will build my church," he could have been referring to a building where people would gather together to worship God. In other words, the statement, "I will build my church," was most likely a metaphorical expression indicating that Jesus would establish a place of worship. This is further confirmed by the fact that the immediate context of Jesus' statement was a discussion about a physical place to stay during their trip to Jerusalem. Furthermore, there is no mention of any sort of hierarchical structure within the church in the New Testament, despite the fact that the Catholic Church today is highly hierarchical with the Pope at the top of the pyramid. Nowhere in the New Testament does Jesus give any man the power to forgive sins, or to change the sacraments, or to perform baptism, or any other rituals. The Bible clearly states that only God has the authority to forgive sins. See Isaiah 43:25, Psalm 51:1, 2, and Mark 2:7. Also, the Bible teaches that we are saved by faith alone, not by works or rituals such as baptism. See Ephesians 2:8-9 and James 2:24. Jesus spoke very little about the church in the Gospels. In fact, there is only one other mention of the word church in the Gospels, and that's in Matthew 18:17, where Jesus says, "If the church asks you to leave, then go." Notice that this verse refers to a local church because the word church here is in the plural form, meaning there were multiple churches in the area. So if we were to summarize Jesus' teachings regarding the church, we would have to conclude that the main thing Jesus wanted his followers to do was to meet together regularly in a physical building for worship and prayer, just as the early Christians did after the day of Pentecost in Acts 2:46. Contrary to popular Catholic teaching, Jesus nowhere claimed to have founded a hierarchical institution that would be led by a pope, or that salvation could be obtained by participating in church rituals or ceremonies. The Catholic Church claims that it is the one true church founded by Jesus Christ. However, a careful examination of the Bible shows that the early church was quite different from what we see today. The church founded by Christ was a body of believers who were called out from the world and who had a strong emphasis on the original language, the Hebrew language, as can be seen from the fact that the majority of New Testament books were originally written in Koine Greek, which was the common language of the Jews in Jesus' day. Additionally, the early church placed a high value on the law of Moses and the Hebrew scriptures. For example, in Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council discussed whether Gentile Christians had to follow Jewish laws and customs, and it was decided that they were not required to do so. However, they were instructed to abstain from things that were common or defiled. In other words, the early church continued to practice certain aspects of Mosaic law, while at the same time recognizing that salvation was available to both Jews and Gentiles. In conclusion, the evidence from Scripture does not support the claim that Jesus founded the Catholic Church. In fact, the Bible clearly shows that the early church differed significantly from the Catholic Church of today. Nevertheless, Catholics continue to assert that Jesus founded the church, despite the lack of biblical support for this claim. This raises the question, why do Catholics believe that Jesus founded the Catholic Church? And we'll discuss that in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on our latest videos. You can also support us through various platforms. Stay tuned for more in-depth biblical studies that will help you grow in your knowledge and understanding of the Bible. Have a great day and may God bless you.